Your house is worth whatever it's worth, right? Whoever sells it. Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Landing grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So, Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have no offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff. Oh, ow. I burnt myself slurping and didn't even have Alex. Hey, Alex, you there? Ow.
Hello, mate. Yes, I'm slurping my own tea.
That'll learn me. Oh, it's burnt my top. Look, evening. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
I'm just going to skip on past that question. I'm here. I'm breathing. I'm trying to remember what sleep feels like and keeping the show on the road no matter what. But I'm here. I'm happy. I'm smiling, breathing. Everything's cool. And you and I are here chatting, which is great fun. And it's been a hell of a day. And just before we get into it, just for everyone's benefit, I want to go through to Rightmove released its amusingly titled house price index today. Rachel Reeves last week has apparently asked the Financial Conduct Authority to look at whether or not they can ease mortgage lending rules, which we'll come on to in a minute.
Yes.
Because I think that's what, and yeah, a bit about that. But first, and let me just get rid of this. At first, I thought we could just have a bit of a chat about
the
Don.
Excellent.
The Don today, because I don't know why, but it felt, for better or worse, it felt like something changed majorly today. I listened to his inauguration speech. Did you have a listen?
I did. When you say it changed, yes, we've just seen the world's first prophet since, well, some would say Muhammad, but from a Christian background, we would say Jesus. He was saved by the hand of God. He is now the most powerful cult leader on the face of the earth.
Yeah, well, I mean, he basically said that he reckons that God saved him with that bullet.
For a reason.
You have never believed in sky fairies, have you?
No.
You're not a sky fairy believer.
I am not a believer.
Which is why I can see that be your reaction to that. But I actually, my interpretation of that comment, that God saved his life and that's made him feel like he's got a purpose now, was actually that he really did think, oh my God, I really should have died. That bullet should have gone through my brain, and I didn't. And I don't know who to thank. So I think I've just found religion, perhaps even more than he had already. But
perhaps he was just playing to the massive religious groupings across the USA.
That's jolly cynical of you, but yeah, I suppose. Anyway, he said a few things that I thought, from the point of view of looking outside, from the outside in, from the rest of the world. I just thought that was I don't know, it felt pretty punchy rhetoric to me. And the bit that really stuck in my mind was about the Panama Canal, because never mind the Panama Canal so much, but there was one sentence when he said, we didn't give it to China, we gave it to Panama.
Oh yeah.
So we're taking it back because China's now running it. Like, we're taking it.
Yep.
Just we're having it. And to actually put that in your inauguration speech, I think warrants it being taken seriously. And that, to me, was the biggest piece of saber rattling in terms of, right, sort of everyone else, we're going to put America first. Like, never mind, literally, figuratively.
The whole speech was exactly that. He basically turned around to the world and said, fuck you. America's been the police for so long. We've spent so much. We are doing it, in wars that are not really anything to do with us. You complain about it. You complain about American interference. Fine, fuck off. And by the way, we've got all the oil and gas that we need. We can produce lots of plentiful, cheap energy because we're no longer going to pursue all of our carbon targets. We're not even going to worry about electric vehicles, much as I've appointed Elon as my Doge man. We don't care. We are just going to make America great. We're going to look inward. We're going to have a very strong military inside. We're going to use lots of strength to get rid of illegal immigrants and to get rid of gang members and deport them back to where they came from. And we're going to protect our own borders. The rest of the world can go swing. And by the way, if you want access to any of our stuff, you're going to pay through the nose. Lots of tariffs.
He proudly announced the external revenue service.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, he has absolutely laid out what he expects. And if I was an American and I wasn't gender fluid and I wasn't into the green, sort of worried about climate change, I would be cheering him on. I mean, he is putting America first, which is what an American president ought to do rather than interfering in global politics. But with the amount of energy they're expecting to export, we don't have to worry so much about the dollar reserve. It's going to be the American oil reserve. The rest of the world better take notice, and that includes us, because if Starmer keeps cozying up to Tusk rather than Trump, Trump is not a forgiving character. He may wear it for a little bit, but not for too long.
No, he doesn't suffer. I was going to say fools, but that's not the right word. He doesn't suffer till he's like, are you in or are you out? Quick, isn't he? He's like, do you want to do this or not? Either cooperate. Or...
You're with me or you're against me.
Yeah.
Look. The worst side of that is the kind of Star Wars Emperor type thing with the military and militia forces roaming the streets and deporting and arresting and deporting immigrants. However, he did temper that with the whole Martin Luther King piece. And he said, any race, any religion, any skin color, I don't give a crap.
Yeah, we're going to be colorblind, didn't we?
Yep. I want that to be true, but only for the good people. It's a fair. I mean, if you're running a country, who else should you be caring about more than your own populace? It would be nice if somebody over here did that.
Yeah.
What is it? 300 billion to the Ukraine over 100 years?
I'm just amazed there hasn't been a bigger, at least, inquiry into that by journalists and by politicals who are going, sorry, how much? When we really, sorry, what was did you say 300 billion pounds over the next 10 years? Did you really say that?
No, 100 years.
He made a 100-year pledge.
This is what is being posted on X. I have no idea if it's true.
He did. I saw it. I did see that. Anyway, okay, so what do you reckon? Do you have any feeling for what the immediate ramifications of the Donald are for the EU and for the UK? Or are they the same?
They are at the moment, they are the same. If Keir plays ball with Donald, then actually we may enjoy a slightly more privileged position. But still, as the lackey of America rather than it's never going to be an equal sort of split. Yeah, but the EU, it's too big a block. As one entity, I'm afraid that Donald will see that as a threat. I wouldn't be surprised to see tariffs imposed. It won't just be China. It's not just going to be China that he's focusing on. He will focus on the EU because he doesn't like their politicians. He doesn't like the way they operate. He doesn't feel that they pay enough into NATO. All of these things, he feels he's been supporting the whole of Europe. America has been supporting the whole of Europe and neglecting internally. I mean, we know America has huge problems internally, whether it's suicides, drug addiction, rich and poor, and he wants to address that. So I don't think he's going to be, look, what he said tonight was absolutely trying to set up the hard man for the coming negotiations that will occur. How that plays out, I don't know, but I don't think he's going to be exactly gentle.
I interpreted it as a big pair of two fingers up to globalism.
Yeah.
we're going to make America, we're going to become a manufacturing company again. We're going to make stuff in America. We're going to have cheap energy with which to make it. We're going to export our cheap energy. We're going to do all of this stuff to make American people better off, and everyone else can fuck themselves.
Well, and as he said, the money is going to pour into the treasury from other countries. I mean, to be fair, it already does through the bloody bond market. Money pours into America because it's the global reserve currency. I mean, the fact that he's now going to charge on all the products, etc., as well, what a bastard. But there's not much we can do about it, so we'd better pay attention.
The other thought that occurred to me is, I wonder if they've given up trying to knock him off, or whether they're just going to wait for the dust to settle, and when no one's paying attention, have another go.
Oh, I agree. That's what I said to Monica before she left. This will be very interesting if he's not assassinated within the next 12 months, which is always a possibility.
Yeah.
He's gonna have a lot of enemies.
The American markets have sort of given it a fairly positive reaction, haven't they?
I haven't looked recently.
I wonder. No, I just wonder what it means. I mean, he mentioned targeting inflation and bringing it down, but he even said bringing prices down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they're pretty flat. I mean, it's 1%, 0.8%, 0.5% across the Dow, the S&P.
It was priced in, obviously, wasn't it? But there were no shocks in there.
No.
There was nothing that hadn't been trailed somehow in advance. It was all, we'd all been set up for it, teed up for it, hadn't we?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
But I can't help but, I mean, the funny thing is that despite having set everything out like that, I still think everyone's guessing and wondering, what's he actually going to do, and what are the ramifications of it going to be? Now, for my mind, the biggest question mark, which will have the biggest impact on Europe, is whether or not he does end the Ukraine war. That, if he does or if he doesn't, it creates a difference, doesn't it?
Depends on what you mean by end the Ukraine war. If you mean just stop supporting Ukraine.
No, I mean broker an end to it, to actually end the conflict.
Well, he'll be brokering it by saying, by the way, Zelensky, I'm not going to be giving you any more cash. So what do you want to do about
that? Right. But yeah, I wonder what that will do for Europe. I wonder what that will do for the European markets.
It'll put America in much better standing with Russia. And let's face it, Trump has not really been an enemy of Russia. He's more of an enemy of China. And it'll be very interesting because, Russia is a big exporter of oil and gas. They would be natural opponents, as they were through the Cold War. We'll have to see. But this is the great thing about Trump. If you are an American, to have him as your president, nobody knows which way he's going to jump. You don't know day to day, and so he can wrong foot any administration. The Chinese think that they're coming to the table to discuss X, and it turns out Donald has a bit of a ramble, and then they're discussing Y. They had no idea that was coming.
Yeah. Someone's asking, how do you think Trump's appointment will affect the UK housing market? Well, this is what I'm saying. I don't. It's not clear until we discover what, if any, changes to tariffs actually happen. I don't think anyone really knows what the effect's going to be on the economy. Now, on the housing market itself, the most direct impact will be if his decisions have an influence on the bond market globally. The movements in the bond market are the thing that's most likely to affect the UK housing market most directly in the shortest order, depending on what happens. And I have no clue what's going to happen there. I actually I've got a funny feeling that the bond yields might settle a bit now globally. I don't know. I could be wrong. I just think there's a lot of nervousness and uncertainty leading up to this inauguration.
I just want to note from Jay and Senior Stranger. Sorry, guys. I was looking at yesterday's stock prices and movements. The markets are closed today, obviously. We don't know until tomorrow what's actually going to happen, but I don't think it'll be anything radical.
See, has he, because a lot of people think that the globalists, the EU, the WEF are openly working on what they call the Great Reset, and that's what's driving most of European policies. Do we think he's directly opposing that, or he's indifferent, doesn't care, he's just do what he wants to do with America, and the WEF can do what they like?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's face it. Well, I say that the policies that he has just laid out go absolutely against the WEF principles.
Yep.
You know, they believe in globalization. They believe in net zero. You know, they're pushing all of the things that he has just gone, yeah, fuck off.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I think I was left feeling no idea how this plays out, but something's going to, what it's not going to continue to be is business as usual. There are going to be significant changes. I think the biggest global, one of the big global concerns has got to be just how America and China rub along now, especially when it comes to Taiwan.
Yes.
That to me, that's worrying, right? If
Well,
China
China have made their intentions clear, haven't they?
Yeah,
they want Taiwan back. And as a semiconductor manufacturer for the world, that's just not acceptable. Well, it shouldn't be acceptable to anyone who's depending on electronics.
Anyway, so there we are. Trump. I think at least we're going to be able to get whatever happens now. People won't be waiting and wondering so much. We're going to find out this week a lot of what's going to happen.
Yeah, he wants to get started very quickly. I mean, he laid out those first plans that he's signing off. You know, emergency on the southern border, emergency. These are powerful things that give him an awful lot of authority, which is why I was talking about militia and armed forces. You know, it's a little bit frightening.
The one thing he said about that, which I actually agree with this, I don't know if you saw about that. There are some of those, literally foreign gangs who've gone in and completely taken over whole blocks of apartments, and the police haven't touched them.
Yeah,
and he's saying that's not okay. The government's job is to keep you safe in your homes, so they're going to be removed.
Yeah. And that's the thing. There was a lot in that speech you really couldn't argue with. For looking after your country, and not only that. Listen, he gave a good speech. He spoke well. He spoke fluently. He spoke passionately. He made one cock up in his wording throughout the entire thing. Imagine if Biden had been giving that speech for a second time.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have been able to understand more than every third word.
And I did think that it was a nice touch, the Martin Luther King thing, because it's Martin Luther King Day, and he said, I'd like to make his dreams come true, or his dream come true.
He had some great points. Let's face it. He's just managed to rally support in the entire oil and gas industry, the automotive industry, the Bible Belt. Everyone on the black community and white or whatever community who supports Martin Luther King, he's managed in one quick speech to really garner a lot more support.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. Right. Well, I mean, it does make, again, whatever your politics are, his stature, if you like. I mean, I was listening to they were playing it on Radio 4 during PM with Evan David. They just played the whole thing live. And the reaction there, I mean, the BBC hate Donald Trump with such a deep passion and loathing. You can hear it dripping from their mouths how much they hate it. But even Evan Davis said, it just feels like this is a really big deal. It feels like this is a much bigger mandate than before. Why is that? Why does it feel like he's got such a big mandate? Was the question he asked straight afterwards. And that's what I came away thinking. Is like, compare that to not just the UK, by the way, pretty much any European government.
They're
all just so kind of wet blankets, spineless, just bureaucrats running the whole of Europe. It's like, where are the characters? Where are the actual people who stand up and go, no, we're going to do some stuff, rather than, no, we're not going to do anything. We're going to talk a lot and do nothing.
But we'll change this tax by 1.2%, and we'll move that rate by 0.5%,
yeah,
and we'll just
tinker around
fiddle
the edges.
around at the edges.
Exactly that. Well, that brings us on, doesn't it, to
Rachel.
yes. Now, I listened. So she did a podcast interview with Nick Robinson, talking politics, whatever it is. They just have a conversation. It's not an interview; it's a conversation. I've listened to those with him before, and I've often found him actually being quite impressed with how well Nick Robinson, when he chooses to, can really pin someone to the wall, even in a nice, friendly way. And he didn't with her. He completely let her off the hook. He asked her some ostensibly quite challenging questions, but then didn't push back and follow up when she gave pathetic, feeble answers. And I thought that was pretty weak and feeble of him. But I really listened to her, and I tried to listen with an open mind. I thought, right, I'm going to assume that I actually don't know anything about her. I'm going to dispel all of my previous misconceptions about Rachel Reeves, and just listen with an open mind and an open ear to see if anything she says actually kind of stacks up and makes sense. Maybe you don't get to that position without having something about you. You don't climb the greasy pole of politics into that position.
No.
If you're a nobody, right? You've got to have something about you to get to that point. But I tell you what she reminded me of by the end of it. Anyone watching this who's ever worked for a large corporation with really weak leadership that talks a lot, but there's just kind of like no one in the organization takes it seriously, because you listen to them saying it, you're just like, and you just kind of ignore it. And especially, I mean, in the estate agency industry, you got Countrywide, that was famously mismanaged badly from about 10 years ago, when they brought in someone with retail experience who had no experience with property. And because there wasn't, for all of its serious flaws, there were some great people at Countrywide who'd been there a very long time. And they all just watched in horror as she just drove it into the ground.
Yeah.
With confidence and putting out statements saying she knew what she was doing. And she literally bankrupted Countrywide. She literally drove it into bankruptcy until it got bought out. And that is where I was left feeling with Rachel Reeves, as someone who's just been in and around, and she's learned the corporate game, the institutional game, how to play it, how to say the right thing to the right people and climb your way up there, right?
Oh, yeah.
But there is no substance. There is some kind of ideology. She's got some kind of ideology. She strikes me as someone who deeply loathes posh people.
Yep.
But really, really fucking hates them. Okay. And has done since she was a kid. And has got herself into a position of power that's slightly gone to her head and given her a little bit too much confidence when she really can't back it up. Because anyone in that position that she's in now, who's done that budget, that had real stature and actual sort of integrity in the role, would, I think, not just be sticking to their guns as it all starts to fall apart around their ears.
Yeah, but has she even noticed that it's falling apart yet? She thinks it's just the beginning of the change.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that was the other thing I decided at the end of that interview. I think she's delusional.
Yes.
Like, just totally self-delusional, notwithstanding the achievements of getting elected, getting up back to that level of the party, getting appointed chancellor. Yeah, that is an accomplishment that anyone should be rightfully proud of.
She believes that she has created a budget for growth.
Do you think so?
Yes.
How is that possible? I mean, imagine how deeply she must fail to understand how an economy works for her to believe that.
I have no idea.
What I mean, okay, just devil's advocate. What part of her budget do you think that she believes will create growth?
Well, she's raised the minimum wage. So that means young people are going to get paid more. Not only that, because she's increased the employer's national insurance, that's going to be fine. It's not going to have any impact on the workers, who will have more money. And she's going to get more revenue from these employers. It's going to be fantastic. This is definitely a growth thing. Now, she's about to create more growth, because with the FCA, she's going to expand the mortgage debt. And, by doing that, she's going to allow young people to buy houses that they couldn't otherwise afford, because she's going to allow them to get mortgages that will last 45 years and will be 5 times their salary. And yes, that is going to be 50% of a joint wage, but that's okay because they'll have a house. She's really helping. I honestly believe that she thinks she is helping.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. I think she's delusional. But what you just said, if she thinks that raising minimum wage is going to somehow foster actual real growth, then how
Yes.
could she possibly have come out of the LSE with a master's in economics? I mean,
Yeah.
having said that, I've employed people with master's degrees who couldn't answer a real world question.
And Sir Fleshmorph has said, as if Reeves is making all the policy by herself. You're quite right. That's the most frightening thing. She's got 2,000 people behind her in the Treasury, as well as her SPADs and advisors and think tanks. And, but you choose who you want to listen to. And let's face it, the civil service are pretty left-leaning and have a very small understanding of the way the economy and most people in it work, because they're the guys with the gold-plated pensions who get the nicely index-linked pay rises at the moment until they all get sacked, which is coming soon. And so they don't really understand the real world in the same way that a minister who has been a career politician, has never worked in business, has never employed anybody, also does not understand the real world. And they come up with these ideas and they believe that they will work. Cynics who have worked in business understand that if you raise the wages and also raise the insurance that you're going to have to pay on those wages, most employers are going to employ less people unless business is booming. If business is booming and you've got loads of revenue, sure, you'll swallow that and you'll employ more people. But guess what? There is nothing in our economy that suggests that business is booming. If anything, it's tightening. So you're just going to lay more people off.
We are in recession. We are, according to the ONS figures, in recession. It's just that the timing of the 6-month period doesn't quite line up with the quarter, so it's not official. But GDP figures show that it's 6 straight months of contraction up to November.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have actually, wherever you look, when I did 5 Fact Friday, I looked for anything that was tangibly positive news for this country's economy or housing market, and I couldn't find anything, genuinely. Now, perhaps that's because I'm so acutely biased with my own thoughts, but I genuinely couldn't find anything. Everything that's being done is making it harder for businesses, harder for people who are trying to make ends meet and pay the bills.
Yep.
All the metrics, wherever you look, are deteriorating at various speeds. And all the things that we know are coming, for example, stamp duty thresholds coming down, stamp duty rates going back up. In other words, housing costs about to rise for a lot of people.
That's okay, because we're going to let you borrow more, so you can
come
still
on just a
afford
second,
it.
because that's definitely something we've got to spend some time on. But I wonder how bad the jobs data is going to be in Q2 when we finally get Q2 jobs data.
Every company, you know that at the moment I'm sort of fractional, which means I just have lots of masters. And every company that I'm working with at the moment, with one notable exception, and that's because of the way they're funded, are laying people off or not looking at growing this year. The best case is they're saying, look, we're not going to grow. We've got a freeze on headcount. Some of them are laying people off. And I've got one, just it's the way they're funded. They're fine. So I'm quite pleased I'm working with those guys at least 2 days a week.
Right. So, but otherwise, best case scenario is hiring freeze.
Correct. Right now, that's and bear in mind, I'm talking about commercial real estate and to some degree IT as well. It's the two hats.
So yeah, so Fleshmore says their theory is that public spending will boost the economy. Other than a massive, oh God, did you see that story today about there are councils who are cancelling social house building?
Yes, they've got no money and everything is too expensive. They've got to. The problem is, as you know, the councils, 25% of their budget goes on paying their pensions, and about another 40% of their budget or more goes on paying for social care. Now, my sister works in social care, And she was saying that the madness of it is, you know how they said for the NHS, they're not increasing national insurance, employer national insurance for the NHS, because that would just be mad,
Right.
wouldn't it? But if you look at adult social care, now these are homes for adults who have, mental health issues or physical issues. It's a combination. They are not paid for privately. They are funded by the NHS, but they are not exempt from the national insurance increase. And that accounts for 40 to 50% of the council budget. So of course they're cancelling housing because they've got no fucking money.
That's the worst thing. I mean, honestly, that was the single worst piece of news for the housing crisis I've seen.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrendous.
Central government should say to all councils, your funding is ring fenced and secured for social house building. Just just find the places, get them built, get them sorted. The funding for that is ring fenced and separate from everything else. I can't believe it. And I can't believe that even Labour, I would have thought that Labour would be more likely to build social housing at scale and at pace. I just don't know what's happened to them. Anyway, so yes. So Rachel thinks that the FCA, it's a good idea to undo the rules that were put in place to stop another 2008 happening. To loosen. This is a good idea. This is a good idea because people can buy their own.
It's a very good idea. We need the banks to hold less reserves. They don't need as much money. That's okay because it protects us. But we don't need a shock absorber. We like a good slap in the face with a wet fish. That's fine. And we should literally turn our entire nation into debt slaves for their whole lives, including when they retire.
So I've got this story. This is the story on an estate agency industry website. Rachel Reeves considers easing lending rules as home buyers face higher mortgage costs. And so currently, banks can only lend 15% of their total mortgage loans to people who are borrowing more than 4.5 times their yearly salary. So that's the particular thing they're thinking about loosening, right? And that was done obviously to make banks not be too exposed to that higher risk demographic. The Bank of England previously scrapped rules requiring lenders to check if homeowners could afford mortgage payments
years ago
in 2022. Okay, so they've already loosened it. They've already loosened it, right?
Now, however, Charlie, and I think any of your mortgage guys, if there are any watching, will tell you, because I made a big thing about this back in 22, and they said all of the lenders that we know still do the stress tests. It's just that they weren't required. Right. So I don't know if that's still the case. But just to be, there's a difference between scrapping it and the lenders not doing it.
Yeah, I was interested to see that most of the public reaction everywhere I've seen it has been, wait, how stupid are they? Didn't they learn last time? Almost everywhere, that's been the reaction.
Well, of course.
So I love this. Mortgage commentator at Rightmove surprisingly welcomed the potential changes.
Yeah, that is a shocker. Absolutely.
He said it really is encouraging that the market relates are now considering what a review of mortgage affordability could look like. It's what we've been calling for, as that is what is needed to truly impact home mover affordability, particularly for first-time buyers. You kind of want to get a wet fish out, don't you?
A good slap in the face with a wet fish.
No, the reason that people can't afford homes now is because this has been done too much in the past.
Charlie, you've got somebody there, Jim Bob, who has made a joke, and the joke is they need to expand average lifespan to make this work. Lol. Can I just cynically counterpoint that, Jim Bob? You're entirely wrong. What they're hoping is that by making everyone poor, average lifespan will reduce so they don't have to pay the state pension for very long. That's the way it works. Lol.
Well, I think what they actually want to do is they want to keep you alive just long enough to pay off your mortgage, and then you die. Lol.
And then die. Yes. Lol. Correct.
I'm not even joking. I think that's genuinely what's happening. Like, keep them alive, give them longer mortgages. As long as they pay the mortgage till they go, when they stop paying the mortgage and they're therefore of no use to us, then they can die and then they won't cost us care home. Yeah,
but you don't just need to die, because we're going to give you assisted suicide or whatever we're calling it these days.
Yeah. I think 2025 is going to be. So I'm now working closely with a particular estate agent that's come to me and said, we are a long-standing, reputable local owner-managed business. We are being steamrollered by Foxtons and Dexters and relentless carpet bombing and blunderbussing about house prices being amazing and overvaluing massively. It's making it almost impossible for us to win an instruction at a price that we can sell. And they told me that last year, 2024, everyone, the year, do you remember, it got off to a good start? Looking better.
Yes,
And they went,
yeah, it did.
and it just kind of, it just tailed
Yep.
off, and deals fell through, and pipelines got longer, and it was just, it was a really encouraging start to the year. We'll come on to Rightmove in a minute because they're spouting the same kind of crap about this year, but what I've seen right firsthand at the coalface is that there's more and more stuff coming on the market and not selling. Just a general trend everywhere. Yes, there are pockets where there are exceptions to it, but generally speaking, as Rightmove has confirmed today, last year Rightmove said there was a record number of new homes coming to the market. This year is 11% up on that. Okay, so we've got significantly rising levels of homes that are not selling. A lot of anecdotal reporting of the Rightmove emails coming through, all with price reductions. And you've got the illusion of a busy market because of the people trying to beat the stamp duty deadline on the 1st of April.
Exactly.
There is definitely activity on the back of that. Although that's about to start running out of steam in terms of new deals and new sales.
Yeah, because it'll be too late. They'll realise that there's
Honestly,
no time to
the
get it
number
done.
of sellers, we need to come on to this in a second, about the number of sellers who've just put their property on the market now and think they're going to have it sold by the end of March.
Well,
What
that depends. If
planet
they put
are
it
they
on,
on?
well, it depends. If they put it on very, very much below anything else in the market, at that size, they may do.
Well, I know. Why don't we take a look at Rightmove's figures and see what they've done? Because Rightmove tells us,
They put the prices up because they think everyone's desperate to
honestly,
buy.
this is just in.
It's mad, isn't it? That's human. That is human nature. If you don't understand the way that human brains work, one side of the coin goes, look, these guys are desperate to buy before the stamp duty goes up, so we can raise it by almost as much as the stamp duty, and we'll still get that money. And on the other side, you've got people going, shit, we need to get in. They haven't sold this place. They must be offering a bigger discount by now. And so the two will never meet and the sales won't be made. And there'll be so many fall throughs in the next 3 months. It'll be unbelievable.
Well, that was one of the key points that I wanted to make, is that in the same week that the ONS showed us that house prices in England and Wales fell $3,000 in 1 month, the ONS, by the way, they didn't announce that. It wasn't in their bulletin. But if you looked at October and November, both England and Wales had both dropped by £3,000. Not one single paper or news website mentioned it. Right? That's a 1% drop in a month. And that's actual completed prices. Yes, it's their initial estimate, but their initial estimates are consistently high, aren't they? And in the same week that they say that house prices are falling month on month, Rightmove reports the largest ever increase at this time of year in asking prices. How's that going to end?
Yeah.
How's that going to end? So, and then we go back to what I told you, which is about the Foxtons and the Dexters of this world, whose rampant overvaluing is scaling new heights because of the desperation to make money in a toughening market. I think once we get past Q1 into Q2 and beyond, I think sadly the housing market is going to really, really struggle in terms of, never mind prices, just in terms of function, just in terms of actually being able to move, being able to buy, being able to sell. I think fall throughs are going to go back up. I think there's more and more unsold stuff. I think buyers are going to start pulling out as more and more bad economic data comes out. That's already happening, by the way. I'm hearing that a lot. That is already happening, where buyers, who are quite advanced position are going, I'm getting a little bit not sure I want to continue with this. And that of course can make chains collapse.
Yes.
But for those of you who are new here, and for those of you who aren't, it bears repeating, Rightmove's monthly report is purely on asking prices. It's purely on initial asking prices and excludes any price reductions, even if they happen within the 28-day period, which many of them do. And it excludes everything that was already on the market last month that has been reduced or not been reduced, either way, right? But despite all of that, which makes it as tippy-toppy, tip-top-tip as we possibly can, look at the year-on-year change here. If you remember, the ONS said year-on-year completion prices were up 3.4%, which was a lie. Based on their own figures, it was 1.7%. Right?
Yep.
So the ONS's actual figures comparing like with like was 1.7%. So Rightmove is also showing there that prices are now 1.8% ahead of last year. But this is a simplification and averaging out the whole market, and it hides what's really happening, which is important, especially when you consider how many so-called millionaires are now forecast to leave in the next few years. I think it's over 500,000, right? Who knew there were 500,000 millionaires? Anyway, let's get down. This is the most important bit here, this data here, right? Where the monthly change was roughly 1% for first-time buyers and second steppers. This is the monthly change in asking price. And there's always a seasonal uptick in asking price in January. That happens every year, right? But the uptick at the top of the ladder was twice as much. Now, that doesn't mean that people are putting their asking prices higher. It means that there are more higher value properties coming to the market, I think, right? What we're not seeing is price increases on Rightmove, are we? We're not seeing anyone going,
No,
hey,
exactly.
this asking price of this unsold property, we just decided to put it up. No, that's not happening. There's more and more stuff at the top end of the market that's not selling. And there's more and more overvaluing happening by desperate agents who are struggling because pipelines are slowing down. And I think we're headed into the most difficult market. I'm not talking about prices. I'm saying that the actual market, moving house, is going to be the most difficult market. And that's bad news for everyone. It's just bad news because there are a lot of people who are suffering because of the economy who need to sell and are going to be unable to sell when they get, I mean, and they're such easy targets as well. These poor people who are being forced to sell for financial reasons, and they're given false hope by a whole succession of overvaluing agents.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's nothing we can do about it other than keep on trying to get people to wake up, because there are many uncertainties that are going to happen between now and Q2, except for the one certainty we've got is the stamp duty changes, right? And that increasing stamp duty for first-time buyers at 300 grand or above, and increasing stamp duty for everyone else are back up to the rates they were before the last government brought them down. Is that going to help moves, or is that going to make more people move house or less people move house? Right? It's just going to kill the already low levels of liquidity in the housing market. It's just, and that's going to. We've seen building numbers coming down, like the bricks. There's a bricks index, isn't there? How many bricks?
Absolutely,
that's declining.
It's way down. I mean, there's no way that new properties, and we know this, we know that property developers are not building new properties at the moment because they simply can't make the money on it. And so they will sit on it until they can make the money. And this market is not that.
I know. And this is why, this is the thing that really frustrates me, is that the number of, whatever word you want to choose, right? Naive first-time sellers who now need to sell, who are going to have 3 estate agents all come around and all lie about what they think they can get for it. Yeah. And because all 3 are in the same ballpark, the sellers are going, the ONS says prices are still going up every year. And they're also saying,
why wouldn't you pick the highest one?
No. What I mean, the point is, whichever one of them you pick, even if they're 3, they're all overvalued. Right?
Yes, they're all overpriced.
Still, even this is my point, right? Even the most sensible sellers in that scenario who go, right, okay, so one of them is valued at 500, One of them is valued at 475 and one of them is valued at 470, but actually it's only worth 400. And so they go on at 470, thinking we're being realistic. We went with the agent that gave the lowest valuation, and they're still on 20% too high. Those are the sellers I really feel for. Because what more could they have done other than spending hours going beyond the weekly headlines to actually go, well, let's just assume they're all lying and try and find out the truth. It's not easy for people to find out the truth. And even if you are looking for the truth and you find, how many people are out there telling the truth? Well, basically you and me, Alex. And
are we the only ones? The problem
in the housing market, of people who have a significant platform with a significant audience in the housing market, who else is pushing out caution on house values in the housing market? I don't know anyone else doing it.
I know. To be fair, I don't watch these things, so I have no idea. But what I do know, speaking to friends, is that nobody trusts their estate agent, and they think the estate agent, in their minds, they're going, well, of course, he's going to give me a pretty low valuation so that he can get it sold as fast as possible, and that way he's got the money, because it doesn't make much difference if it's 1.5%. It doesn't make much difference to him whether it's 475,000 or 520,000. He just wants the sale done. So the problem is, when the agent's overvaluing, the seller still doesn't trust them, but they believe that that it's a reasonable number.
Roni Bomick makes a point. Says, Charlie, I'm a first-time buyer. My mantra now is any house I view, I just quote my buying price 20% below asking price that the owner and agents quote. If challenged, I say, ask Charlie. Right. That's why a lot of agents hate me. Right. And
which is fine, Roni. Keep doing it.
The really important point is that it's a mistake to do that as standard with all properties, because if you're a first-time buyer at first-time buyer level, it's not 20%. They aren't 20% overvalued, right? It's not as bad. The overvaluing at that level isn't as bad. Secondly, well-priced properties will go for the asking price that they're listed or more if they've got on with an intelligent agent and a realistic seller. So and you risk, in that scenario, you risk not being taken seriously by that agent again. So you've got to look at each individual property that you're viewing on its own merits, and so how long has it been on the market? Has it had any price structures already? Is there anyone else viewing it? If it's only been on the market a couple of weeks and there are lots of viewings happening, don't go in 20% under asking, right? Because that's just there'll be other people bidding at market value, and you will look like you haven't done your research. But at the higher end of the market, certainly it is widespread 20% over. What Rightmove calls top of the ladder, widespread 20 to 30% overvaluing, widespread.
Yeah.
Even though we've already seen prices at that level of the market come down already. So there will eventually be data to show that at that level of the market, in real terms, we're probably already at 35% off the peak. Are you trying to share a screen?
Yeah, just while you were, as a background image, whilst you were chatting, I opened Rightmove to my favorite SW6, checking the prices. And the first ones I opened it to, you've got this one here at 23% reduction since it first went on the market in October 23, and last reduction in November of 24. And the guy above there, 14% went on. They've been sitting on the market for a year and a half, and they still haven't learned. But whoever put this on 600,000 over, what did they think was going to happen?
Yeah. Well, this is actually where I think some understanding is required, because what I'm seeing, and I saw it firsthand with this agent I spent some time with last week, is that they are up against Foxtons and Dexters more than anyone else, because they are a well-established agent in their area, and they do have significant share of the area. But all of their sellers who have got, and they're roughly £1 million is kind of average property value they're selling. It's Southwest London, not far from where you are. All of them are 20% or more over. And the agent told me that. He said, we know that they are these 20, 25% over. And yet the sellers are just like waiting
Someone will
for
come
someone
along.
to come along
Yes, someone will
and bid
turn
up. And they were saying that, you know, we know they're overvalued. We went on at that price because those sellers basically said, well, Foxton said and Dexter said and this, and we'd rather go with you because you're a friendly local family run company, but we want the money that Foxton. Can you get us what Foxtons and Dexter said they can get us?
No, because they can't get you that money
And so the
either.
agents go, well, you know, these guys are fairly well known. Can you get it or not? Or should we just go with Foxtons? You know, and so you do get these obstreperous sellers who are like, no, this is how much we need, because if we don't get this, then we can't move on to our next home. So can you get it for us or not? And it really puts these guys on the spot. And this is why I always say you just have to completely avoid and say, look, the market will decide what your property gets. The market will decide.
Yeah.
What the discussion is how do we bring it to market and make sure that we get competing bidders?
Yes.
But there are, so, you know, in that bracket of sellers sitting on the market with their price too high, there are the ones with their fingers in their ears who are going, la, 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 I have convinced myself of what I want to convince myself of, and I'm an intelligent person because I'm wealthy and live in £1 million house, right? Don't you tell me, Mr. Agent, I live in £1 million house, right? So don't tell you, I've done my research, Foxtons and Dexters agree with me.
Yeah.
So therefore, I'm being
course they
realistic,
do.
and don't tell me that my house is sitting on the market for 6 months without an offer because it's too expensive. That's not my problem. That's your problem. You're my agent. Go out and get it. So there are those kind of sellers, and those are the kind of sellers that sensible agents should walk away from and say, look, good luck with Foxtons. Just good luck with Foxtons. But then you've got the sellers who are genuinely trying not to be like that, but wherever they look, they're getting it. And when they hear the truth, right? When they hear look, it's not 1.3, it's 1.
Yeah.
And the seller's going, but hang on, but we've got a 600 grand mortgage and we think we've got 700 grand of equity in it. And you're telling us we've only got 400 grand of equity in it. And we were going to give our kids 100 grand each as a deposit. Our 3 children, 100 grand each as a deposit out of the 700 grand of equity we're going to have. And then lose the other 400 grand to buy our next home. So what you're telling us is that we can't give our kids homes.
Kids, yeah. People don't like to hear that.
That is a very, very difficult reality to come to terms with. And human nature will just push that acceptance away. It'll just kick the can. No, maybe it's just the election. Maybe it's the budget. Maybe it's just Christmas. Maybe the spring.
Yeah.
Because no parent wants to think that they have misjudged it so badly that having thought they're in a position to help their kids onto the housing ladder and get themselves a house downsizing to, they now can't do both. And either they give their kids homes, or they have a house
Exactly.
But which one is it? You know, and I think that is a brutal reality that is slowly seeping in, very, very slowly seeping in across the country. And the really switched on people who are like, look, I don't care how brutal the reality is. I just want to know what the reality is so we can get on. Whatever the reality is, we accept it. Let's get on. But those people are in the real minority. I mean, like 10%.
Yeah, few and far between, absolutely.
Because that is an absolutely heinous reality to come to terms with. When you don't think you've done anything wrong, it's like your couple in the Welcome to 2025 video.
Yeah, they did nothing wrong.
Worked hard, joint mortgage, bought a place, and everyone's told them, the ONS, automatic online valuations, Halifax, everyone's told them, Foxtons, Dexters, they've all told them, yeah, 1.3 million, 1.3 million.
It's going to be perfect. There's a question here, although Patricia has actually answered it for you. Thank you, Patricia. You're doing Charlie's job. James Yates, very good question about leasehold.
Okay, a bit off topic, but as a first-time buyer, should I steer clear of leasehold properties? My parents seem to think so, but I'm planning to keep the property long term. If you have the choice to avoid leasehold, and if freehold is an option, then yes, avoid leasehold. If where you need to live, there is no option other than to buy leasehold, proceed with extreme caution and make sure you ask your conveyancing solicitor to look at the lease of any property you're considering buying and ask them, what is the worst case scenario under this lease? Because when you buy a leasehold, you're not buying a property. You are buying the right to live in that property for 99 or 150 or however many years it might be. and it's a depreciating lease. So the length of the lease matters, the service charges matter, the history matters, the other leaseholders matter. It's basically an absolute snake pit if you're buying leasehold. It can turn out okay, but you really need to know what you're doing. A lot of people have bought leaseholds and are now finding out.
Yeah, Patricia makes a good point that the new builds are potentially the scariest because of their service charges from the management companies, whereas conversion flats inside a house, for instance, may not be as bad. But either way, you just need to check it.
Yeah. Well, guys, we're going to wrap up on the dot of 9 o'clock tonight, so in 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. Do we have anyone with a burning question that they want to ask? I mean, first of all, I wanted to ask you, Alex, do you think that Rachel Reeves is going to do that FCA thing and allow them to loosen?
Yes.
Do you think that's a foregone conclusion?
100%. Yeah, and off the back of that, we actually had a question on X from Russ regarding interest rates. And he said, do you think that interest rates are going to fall faster than many people expect, yada, yada, yada. Now, I've said for a long time that I thought interest rates would fall quickly from the 5.25, but I thought that they would bottom out somewhere between 3 and 3.25 before then moving back up and settling at a new normal of 3.75 to 4.25. However, since Rachel Reeves has come in, and the fact that she's willing to do this to monetary, to lending, let's say, with the FCA, smacks to me of somebody who might do the unthinkable and actually start QE again, which I can't believe that anyone would be that dumb.
I can't believe I just heard you say that.
Well, she's loosening the FCA regulations on mortgages at exactly the moment she should be tightening them. If she's that fucking useless, please excuse my language. It's not even 9 yet, but this is very frightening. If she's that bad, I mean, she supposedly can't pressure the Bank of England to reduce rates. But if the economy starts tanking the way that we expect it to, which is why I expected rates to come down to 3.25, maybe 3, then who's to say now? All bets are off with these people in power pumping up money supply. Who knows? My view is yes, we could see rates come down. I still think hopefully they will stop at around 3.25. They will come down very quickly as Rachel Reeves's policies unfold and we end up absolutely in the shit.
Well, we had that. Actually, this is a comment worth noting is that someone, here we are on that story. This is someone from Alexander Hall, which is Foxton's mortgage broking partner, who said, despite 2 reductions to the base rate, we haven't seen mortgage rates follow suit. And in fact, the monthly cost of a mortgage today sits higher than it did this time last year, even though rates are lower.
Yep.
So this is another reality.
You've got to look at the swap rate. Look at the swap rate. Look at the bond market. Yes, the Bank of England rate is important, but that's not where they're borrowing money from.
Which is why I've said that if for people who are in a healthy financial position and want to buy a home, given what's happening in the bond market, I mean, let's see. 1 week from now, I think there'll be a lot more certainty of what might be going to happen in the world. But there's no sign of mortgage rates coming down significantly anytime soon. And if uncertainty creeps up, they could go up. I mean, I don't think they're going to change much from where they are now. I think we're kind of at the new normal. They might come down to 4.25.
Well, I hope so. 3.75 to 4.25 would be perfect. Patricia makes a brilliant point. And actually, that goes back to somebody else, someone B, who said, so house prices could rocket again. And Patricia's point is, Reeves has zero control over bank decisions to lend or not. FCA doesn't make the decisions. Banks do. In fact, regs come once banks decide what they wish to do in terms of risk. Not only that, much as they're throwing out this idea of ×6 joint salary multiples and 45 years, or even extending past that to more than 45-year mortgage terms, because you can get them well into retirement now. As Lewis pointed out, you can actually get a mortgage up until the age of 85, depending on your retirement income. However, if you look at all of those things, people still can't afford to take out these high multiple mortgages at the rates that we have currently. So will this produce a massive boom in house prices? No, I don't think so, because people simply can't afford it. And again, as Patricia said, quantitative easing is the Bank of England's decision. It absolutely is. But if they see the economy going to shit, they're going to be influenced by the feel in the country. And I really hope they won't. I've always said that I don't think they will, because they proved that it doesn't work last time, just as 0.5% interest rates don't work. So what would be the bloody point? But I right now, I'm giving up because people are not behaving rationally.
I'm going to finish up with this, answering Brian Fogg's question. If you've got a moment, Alex, or do you need to go?
No, go on.
Will there be a market correction this year? So first of all, I think the market has been gradually correcting itself from the top down. In other words, from the higher value properties down for a couple of years already, which is why at the top of the ladder end of the market, in most areas of the country, those prices have already come down significantly. It just doesn't get reported anywhere. You have to, if you go and look on the ONS's website, where you can look borough by borough around the country, you'll see that in most places, detached house prices are falling, whilst flats might still be increasing slightly. I still don't think there's. Let's not. The short answer to your question is yes. I do think there's going to be a market correction this year. I could be wrong, because what I see is I see things piling up, all of it pushing away. So whether it's 500,000 millionaires want to leave the country, they're going to be selling their houses. Whether it's all this unsold property putting downward pressure on prices, whether it's too much uncertainty for buyers, whether it's mortgage rates not coming down, whether it's unemployment going up, whether it's wages starting to come down, whether it's layoffs and job vacancies dropping, and all of this, rising business insolvencies, rising numbers of mortgage defaults, rising numbers of repossessions. All of those metrics I've just mentioned are all moving in the direction that puts downward pressure on house prices, all of them. And at some point, if that continues without some big propping up of the economy, let's talk about QE in a second, then there's a tipping point. But it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be like 2008. I don't think it's going to be like a sudden kablamo straight down. I think it's going to be like a S shape. And we're already doing that. And I think that later this year, it's in such slow motion with the housing market, because the figures are so covered up. And I honestly think we need to try and persuade the government to make HMRC publish the stamp duty data, so that we can see in real time what's happening to completion prices. They're deliberately concealing it. They're just deliberately, I mean, someone said just nobody cares enough, but nothing would improve the housing market's functionality better than transparency on house prices, which is why I'm working on that with the Best Agent House Price Index. But even if there is a correction, I don't see it making a massive difference for first-time buyers, sadly.
No, it'll be the higher end properties that lose the most.
I still think that I think you will in many places see even first-time buyer prices coming down. In London with flats, for example, that's happened.
Oh yeah.
And I think that will continue.
But that's the thing. They are top of the ladder prices anyway, because they're over 600,000 for a 2-bedroom flat. So
I think and weirdly, the middle section, the second steppers, so the semi-detached and the terraced houses are not going to do badly, because there is this twin demand where you've got upsizers moving out of their first-time buyer's flat into a family home. That will continue to happen because people continue to have families and live their lives, and there are people who've got jobs and they're going to be able to continue to move up the earnings ladder with their career, as well as this what I see as a continuation of the downsizing trend that might even accelerate. And that's going to create this weird pinch point in the middle for middle properties. And it's going to be detached houses that are going to see the biggest falls of all around the country. And I think even if Rachel and the FCA do relax the current restrictions on lending, and banks decide to relax them as well, I don't think it's going to make a massive difference.
No, because people just can't afford it. The idea that they can borrow more money is lovely.
I think that okay, let's leave QE to one side, because exactly what form, shape, and form, and what timing that takes, and why they've done it, all matters. But leaving potential of QE to one side, I think that you don't see significant house price growth in this country unless you've got a combination of stupid mortgage lending rules that make it too easy, very low interest rates, and stupid stimulus like Help to Buy. When you put all those three things together, yes, up go the house prices.
Or massive wage
Or
growth.
massive wage growth, but yeah.
And we ain't going to be seeing that.
Exactly. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Alex, thank you very much for joining. Wednesday night this week,
mate.
I've got the indie landlord, Suzanne Smith. We're talking about those stupid amendments to the Renters' Rights Bill they're going to make. I mean, the lettings market is looking shocking for the lettings industry, for the moving industry this year as well. If they actually do go ahead with all those plans, that's going to, and that could have weird ramifications. But I just cannot see small landlords hanging on. I just think it's the most effective flush of getting small landlords out. All the agents I'm talking to are just going, smaller landlords are just going, let's just sell. When it comes to the end,
I'm very worried that mine comes up in May, and there's a good chance the 85-year-old landlord will just go, yeah, I can't be asked with this.
Yeah, exactly. But he's got a portfolio, hasn't he?
Not anymore. He's sold 3 of them.
Okay, so he's down. Right, yeah, he's on his way out. Yeah. So that's Wednesday evening, 8:00. We'll be talking about the Renters' Rights Bill. Yeah, brilliant, Alex. Thanks a lot, everyone. Don't forget, if you are moving, and good luck to all of you who are moving. The massively biggest thing that you can do to improve your chances of a successful move is to have your conveyancer lined up first. Make sure you find a conveyancer that's really good. If you can't find one that's really good, I work with 2 firms, one in the south, one in the north, who are outstanding. They're not cheap, because you don't hire cheap professionals and expect to get a good service. But if a good quality conveyancing to improve your chances of getting the deal done are important, talk to my guys if you haven't got anyone else to talk to. And other than that, see you Wednesday evening, everybody. Thanks for watching. Alex, thanks so much.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.